The forest canopy should have awakened with heat. Every morning, when the sun rose above the eastern ridge, its light slipped through the leaves in warm spears, coaxing insects into motion, drying last night's dew, stirring the air into soft currents. The canopy warmed first, always first, giving life its daily spark. The mantis knew this rhythm intimately. Heat meant hunting. Heat meant motion. Heat meant life. But today, as she clung beneath a curl of brown leaf, the warmth never came. The mantis, small and pale green with a speckled thorax, perched motionless on a twig that felt colder than it had any right to be. She had survived storms, predators, droughts, nights so cold they froze beetles mid-step, but she had never felt a morning like this, a morning where the sun rose but its heat did not touch the forest. Light filtered through the canopy in thin, anemic shafts. It illuminated the leaves but did not warm them. It painted the world in dull gold but left the air cold, unmoving, stale. The mantis edged forward, expecting the familiar shift, the warming pulse that would travel from leaf to leaf. Nothing. She lifted her foreleg tentatively and pressed it against a patch of bark. Still cold. She turned her triangular head slowly, scanning the canopy around her. Leaves that should have softened and opened to the sun's warmth hung stiff, curled inward, their surfaces dull instead of glistening. No heat meant no dew lifting. No dew lifting meant no humidity cycling, and without humidity, the forest felt stripped of breath. She climbed a little higher, testing the air with delicate movements. Her antennae picked up only stillness, not a single rising thermal, not one warm breeze brushing past her slender body. In the distance, a bird attempted a morning call, a thin, high whistle. The sound carried weakly, as though muffled by cold air too dense to let it travel. Normally birdsong filled the canopy by now, but today even the birds were hesitant. Below her, a line of ants crept along a branch much slower than usual. Their bodies were sluggish, their movements disorganized. Ants relied on temperature to regulate their internal pace. Without the sun's warmth, their hive-run rhythms faltered. The mantis leaned closer. One ant paused mid-stride, antennae twitching as if confused. Another bumped into it. A mistake ants didn't make when their world functioned normally. She tilted her head again. Far above the canopy, a faint mechanical hum echoed. Human voices, human equipment. Researchers. They had been in this section of the forest for 2 weeks, tracking an unusual pattern in the region's microclimates. The mantis had seen their drone pass overhead yesterday, its small propellers slicing the air in a soft buzz. Today, she heard the drone again. It hovered above the highest branches, its sensors directed downward. She felt the faint vibration through the twigs, but drones usually rose quickly with the warming air currents to stabilize their position. Today it struggled, wobbling slightly, fighting pockets of dense cold that shouldn't exist in full sun. Human voices floated upward. Surface temperature is 6 degrees lower than expected. Sunlight intensity is normal, but thermal absorption isn't happening. Leaf temperatures aren't rising at all, even under direct sun. The mantis understood none of the words, but recognized the tone. Alarm. She crawled farther out onto the branch, trying again to feel the sun. Light touched her body, but nothing warmed. It felt like mock sunlight, brightness without heat. She opened her wings slightly, instinctually trying to warm the thin membranes. But the air stayed cold around them. She folded them back, shivering with a motion almost too subtle to notice. Below her, a beetle attempted to climb a vine. Its movement was jerky, stiff. Beetles depended on heat to wake their flight muscles. This one spread its wings once, then retracted them immediately, too cold to take off. The mantis turned her head slowly toward another leaf. It was brown, not autumn brown, wrong brown, a colour of exhaustion rather than age. She walked to it and pressed a foreleg against its surface. Cold, dry, dead feeling. Another leaf above it bore tiny crystals, not frost, but condensed cold dew that refused to evaporate. Dew should rise when the sun hit it, turning to vapour, feeding humidity cycles. But nothing rose. Dew clung stubbornly, chilling the leaf further. The mantis retreated. Something was deeply wrong. She climbed downward toward a thicker branch, searching for a pocket of trapped heat. Forests always had such pockets, warm zones formed between bark and leaf layers, but even these places felt cold. A butterfly hung motionless from a twig. Its wings were partly open, as if it had tried to warm them, but failed. The mantis approached slowly. The butterfly twitched once, then went still again, wings trembling faintly. It could not fly. It needed heat, and the sun had denied it. Another mechanical hum echoed through the canopy. The researchers were adjusting equipment. One voice rose sharply. "Solar radiation is being reflected, not absorbed." Another added, "Albedo readings are off. Leaves aren't warming." A third voice, tense, "If this persists, photosynthesis will drop. Plants can't function in cold light." The mantis paused mid-step. Plants were the heartbeat of the canopy. Without their warmth, her world would collapse. Leaves that couldn't absorb sunlight meant no sugar production. No sugar meant no growth. No growth meant no new buds, no new insects, no new habitat. Already she felt hunger rising. Normally, small flies emerged with morning warmth. But this morning, none flew, none buzzed, none rose from the leaf litter. She waited and waited. But the sun climbed higher, and still the air stayed cold. The canopy, once vibrant with heat, colour, movement, now felt like a suspended painting. The mantis ventured to the edge of the branch again. She stretched forward, turning her head toward the sun. The light almost hurt her eyes. It was bright enough to blind, strong enough to cast sharp shadows, but shadows meant nothing if the air remained cold. Her legs trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the strain of a body trying to function below its temperature threshold. She lifted her claws in the slow, graceful motion of a hunter preparing to strike. But there was no prey to strike. Nothing moved, not even the leaves. They hung limp, stiff, unstimulated by warmth. Deep below, she heard a toad croak weakly, another sign of stress. Amphibians relied on sunlight-warmed surfaces to regulate their bodies. Without heat, their metabolism sank. The mantis cocked her head. The forest wasn't just cold, it wasn't just still, it was failing to start. A morning without warmth was more dangerous than a long night. Night was expected, cold was expected, but this was a dawn trapped between worlds. Light without heat, sun without power, day without ignition. She climbed to another branch, waiting, hoping, for warmth, for prey, for the canopy's breath. But the sun climbed higher, the leaves stayed cold, the insects stayed hidden, the air stayed dense, and the forest canopy, once alive with warmth, refused to wake. The mantis clung beneath the curved edge of a leaf, her body angled carefully along the midrib, every limb anchored against the creeping cold. She had waited long past the moment when the first wave of warmth should have risen from the canopy floor. But nothing changed. The sun climbed higher, painting the forest in bright gold, yet the temperature held as if dawn had frozen in place. She shifted slightly, seeking a warmer surface. Her forelegs touched the leaf again, stiff, dry, unnaturally cold despite the sunlight. Leaves were supposed to warm first. Their cells absorbed light, converted it, released heat that insects depended upon. But now the leaf felt more like thin paper left in shadow than a living solar panel. She crawled upward toward the branch junction, searching for microclimates. The canopy always had them, small pockets of trapped heat where insects gathered, where dew lifted, where subtle convection currents rippled. But at every step the air stayed dense and unmoving. Below her, the ants she had watched earlier were slower still. Their line along the branch had broken into small clusters of disorganized workers, each one pausing frequently as if unsure of direction. Ants used heat gradients to navigate. Warmer areas meant sun exposure, cooler areas meant shade. But now every surface felt uniformly cold. A few workers attempted to groom one another, their antennae tapping weakly, movements clumsy. Then one ant toppled onto its back, legs kicking. A fatal chill for a creature designed for warm daylight. The mantis turned away. She was a predator, yes, but not one who fed on the dead. Cold bodies meant no energy for her. She needed something alive, something warm enough to give her strength. But the canopy held nothing warm today. A tremor of instinct rippled through her thorax. If warmth didn't return soon, even her own metabolism would struggle. She flexed her abdomen gently, feeling the tension of chilled muscles. Another beetle attempted flight nearby. It unfolded its hard wing covers with effort, the wings beneath trembling violently as it tried to vibrate them warm. The sound was weak, irregular. It beat its wings once, twice, then fell back against the bark, legs curling inward. Not enough temperature, no lift. The mantis approached and tapped the beetle gently with her foreleg. Its wings fluttered with a faint buzz, then stilled. Alive, but barely. Far above, sunlight filtered through gaps in the canopy, bright enough to blind, warm enough in appearance to promise heat. But still the warmth failed to come. She turned her head sharply. A drone hummed overhead again. Humans. It hovered at an odd angle, its sensors scanning leaf surfaces. A gust of its rotors stirred the cold air, the only movement the canopy had felt all morning. The mantis gripped her branch tightly as the artificial wind brushed past her. The breeze should have warmed slightly, touched by sunlight. Instead, it carried only sterile chill. Voices echoed faintly from the forest floor. Leaf temperature is the same as ambient air. No warming effect. Photosynthetic activity is almost flatlined. But sunlight intensity hasn't changed. The drone rose higher as the humans gathered data. Another voice. Deeper, more troubled. We're seeing unusually high reflectance values, almost as if the leaves are reflecting heat instead of absorbing it. That's not possible without a structural change, or without atmospheric interference. The mantis cocked her head. Structural change? She knew nothing of structures or atmospheres. She knew only the behavior of leaves, how they warmed, how they cooled, how long they stayed viable before falling to the forest floor. But the leaf she clung to felt wrong. Not just cold. Wrong. No scent of warmed sap. No subtle release of moisture. No softening of its surface. She crawled to another leaf. Same. Cold. Dry. Still. A caterpillar hung beneath that second leaf, curled into itself. It should have been feeding during the first warm rays of morning, chewing holes in its host plant, leaving sticky trails. But it lay motionless, its tiny hairs beaded with dew that had not evaporated. Its metabolism was stalled. The mantis extended a probing foreleg, touching the caterpillar gently. It shivered, barely alive. Farther away, a bird attempted to stir the canopy, a small warbler hopping between branches. Normally these birds flitted ceaselessly, snapping up insects roused by warming leaves. But today it hopped weakly, wings drooping. It tilted its head, searching for prey that hadn't awakened. It flicked its wings, trying to rise, but the cold held its muscles stiff. It chirped once, confused, thin, then settled back onto the branch, puffing its feathers for insulation it should not need during sunrise. The mantis watched. A predator relied on prey relied on temperature relied on sunlight. If sunlight failed, everything above and below her would unravel. She moved deeper into the canopy, searching for one last refuge, a zone where heat might be trapped. Beneath a cluster of larger leaves, she found a shadowed hollow where moisture always lingered. She pressed her legs into the curve. Cold. Unchanging. Still. A thin layer of dew coated the bark. She touched it gently. Dew should have evaporated hours ago. It clung to her claws like cold glue. The air was saturated but unmoving, moisture unable to rise, unable to cycle, trapped at leaf level. The forest was suffocating on its own breath. The mantis looked upward as the drone returned again, its sensors flashing. Human voices followed. Spectrometer shows wavelengths bouncing back. The leaves aren't absorbing infrared. If this continues, photosynthesis could drop by 30–40%. The canopy will starve. The mantis shifted. Starve. A word she did not know, but a feeling she did. Hunger rose in her abdomen like a hollow ache. Her energy reserves were dwindling. Cold slowed everything, her reaction time, her digestion, her muscle response. If she didn't find warmth or prey soon, she too would fail. She tried to climb higher into direct sunlight. Each step felt heavier. Cold slowed her joints, stiffened each segment. She reached a leaf suspended in a beam of harsh light. Still cold, still dead to touch. She crawled onto it anyway, head lifted. The sun glared harshly across her body, bright enough to silhouette her slender limbs. But her body felt nothing. No heat seeped into her. Her thorax stayed chilled. Her abdomen stayed heavy. She opened her wings again, slowly, painfully. The membranes shook, frail in cold air. No warmth, no lift. She drew them back. Below, the canopy stirred, but not with life, with collapse. A beetle fell from a leaf, landing on its back on the cold bark. It twitched weakly. A tiny fly lay motionless on a curled leaf. A spider moved slowly, legs dragging as if coated in glue. The mantis realized with sharp instinct that the forest was not simply cold, it was failing to ignite. The warmth that should have triggered the day's first breaths, the flows of energy, the start of feeding, the rise of humidity, had not arrived. She lifted her body, trembling now. Her hunger sharpened into something close to fear. The canopy was dying by stillness, by cold light, by a sun that shone but did not warm. She turned one final time toward the horizon, hoping the air would shift, the leaves would awaken, the forest would stir. But the leaves remained stiff, the insects remained silent, the air remained dense, and the sun, indifferent, refused to warm the world beneath it.